So what if we just pretend it's the end of September and I can like be really excited about TI and we don't have to acknowledge the fact that it's like November something and maybe like a bit passé or out of touch? What if we just time travel back a little bit?
Yeah, we could do that. So Joey, how did it feel for your organization to finally win TI? And you were there for all the fucking many times that they didn't win the tournament and had to go through that, but you were there for the big one.
You know, I was thinking about it that you've had to do like 3 podcasts in short succession now, like with a bunch of Liquid people. It's like you gotta talk to fucking Aiden and be like, oh hey, and then you gotta talk to Will and be like, oh hey, and then you gotta talk to my dumbass and be like, oh hey. This is like It's like you probably just want to ice pick your brain from the conversation at this point. You know, it's actually I've been working for Liquid for like 4.5 years at this point. I guess that's the math, right? September. It's September. And it's actually the first event, not just Dota, but like any event that I was at when our team won anything, like across games. So I probably went to, by my count, somewhere close to 7 Dota events, and I think we got second place at 4. Of them. And it wasn't just Dota. Like, you know, I've been to League stuff. I've saw some Counter-Strike games. I've, you know, been all over the place, and it was the first time that like I was there when we won. And obviously like exponentially more special watching my friends win and these people who I've been around the world with and care about and have been rooting for since, you know, before either of us worked at Liquid. You know, I really liked the boys when they were on Alliance and when I was making TV shows, right? So and before I even knew them. So it was a weird moment being on the floor next to Blitz's mom crying and like looking over and like I think sometime during like game 3 when it was like looked like it was over but it wasn't over, some of like the extra staff like yourself and like a couple of Valve people and people just kind of rolled out into like the tunnel of the arena and kind of watched from the fans. And don't spill your water. And you know it was cool because it's like, I mean, we had a moment, like you said, congratulations, and you know, like Trent was super nice and Lyrical was super nice, as was like everybody else, and it was just wild to be there and be like, holy shit, this is like happening. Like it was happening and it happened. And I don't want to make a hyperbole because this sounds like almost kind of gross. I'm not on the team. I just work around them. They're my friends, but I don't know. Fuck, I've been going to TI since TI3, and it was one of the most memorable days of my life in the way that people talk about, like, oh, a wedding or, oh, a kid. Like, I don't think I'm going to forget that moment.
People talk about, yes, people talk about it that way for those things, but they also talk about it when their team wins a championship, right? How many sports fans have you heard that have been a fan? And like you worked for Liquid, but you were also a fan of Liquid for a very long time, right? Going back to StarCraft, right?
2009, maybe. You know, it's been a minute.
Yeah. So, you know, I think it's fair. And you say it's one of the more memorable experiences in your life when, you know, we give the pass to sports fans who are like, oh, I've been cheering for this franchise for 20 years, you know, and, you know, then they watch it on TV. You were involved in the organization. You were there live, right? So I think it's fair.
It was thank you. It was overwhelming a little bit. Like I was trying to do a little bit of be in the moment, but like we're on stage and like there's like people cheering and going crazy. And I'm holding 2 cameras running around, and I have Monster in my pocket. I remember
having the conversation with you about how we did the morning show, but then you were talking about how you were organizing the various employees of like who's going to be getting the shot, when and where for if you guys win on stage, right? Because you want as many shots and as much video, as many photos as possible of that moment, because obviously it's a very big deal for the organization and you're going to be using a lot of this in your marketing and stuff, right? So
Yeah, I was on stage with two cameras. One of them was my cell phone, and the other was like a little like DJI vlogger camera. I had like people in the audience. I had a photographer on stage. My photographer was actually the guy who like yanked the dude with the X on his shirt off the stage. Which was wild. So you know, we had to plan for all that, and you know, then the fans clear out of the arena, but we're just backstage with the trophy, then go up to the suite, and the staff is still there, and friends are still there, and they're like kicking us out of the arena later, and it was just like the night feels like both very vivid and also at the same time very fuzzy, because it was overwhelming, but I could probably recount it like minute by minute almost. Which no one wants to do here, but it was special. Afterwards, we actually took the Aegis because I don't know if it's normally like this. I have no idea what normally happens with trophies in sports or what have you. But they took it off the stage. We walked backstage with it, and then the team just left it there. And I don't know, like, is it our responsibility? How does it get to the party later? So me and our director of esports, you know, who works directly with Victor and is like, you know, responsible for the team, are just like, I guess like it's just our responsibility to take the trophy. So I was walking down around the arena with the trophy, holding it, going up to the booth, showing it up to like all of you know the staff who was there in the VIP section. We took it, we walked it a mile through Copenhagen to go to a party that we organized for TL fans. We're like, hey, if you have a Team Liquid jersey, come to this hotel, drinks are on us, you got to have some merch to get in. And like, we walked in not expecting there to be hundreds of people there, but there were, all in Team Liquid jersey, and we're just holding the trophy, and everybody's like, holy shit, and we're like, whoa. We let a bunch of fans take photos with it. Like, everybody there got to take a photo with the trophy. No idea if we were supposed to do that. There was like no accountability for the thing. We walked it back to the after party. We were like gonna leave it at the after party because we didn't know who to give it to, but Jabs took the trophy home just to like sleep with. And then eventually one of the Val people found it like the next morning and got it back, and then personally put it in their luggage to fly it home. So the trophy gets to have a full night, is what I learned, of just whatever the fuck happens.
Am I remembering this correctly? Wasn't it like Tundra's TI or something that like was it the Lost Aegis or something? I mean, this is obviously a trend.
It was Singapore, and I remember that they talked about like not knowing where the Aegis was, and they ended up finding it like relatively quickly. But now I know how the Aegis can get lost, because it seems like there's just not a lot of accountability for it. It's just, I don't know, if I can have the team take it, and it's like the players want to walk around with it, I guess. I had a night with it, which I didn't deserve. But it was really cool being able to like take it to all the fans. It was really cool being able to take it to the party. The whole day was wild. I feel like I'm content. Like I had that moment, and like I could die happy is probably the trope. Like, we did the thing. It would be cool to do it again, or to be to another game where we do it again. I'm sure I'll be a part of more moments of that, like beyond Dota, but like I feel truly content. Like, last year I got to work TI. I got to help make TI. This year, we won TI. I feel like I'm sitting way more pretty than almost anybody. So I'm chilling.
Yeah, that's pretty hype. I think I think I had some similar experiences to you. Being up on obviously we were sitting backstage, the green room. Blitz is doing this combination between, you know, pacing and freaking out, and sitting in the green room with us, which not many people were there, because most of the talent don't have a tendency not to hang around for finals anymore. Like, personally, I usually don't. If it's TI, I usually don't. Or if it's not TI, I don't. For TI, I mean, for this one, I could have left after the lower bracket final. Though, honestly, the biggest reason I stayed like if there's good seating for us to be able to watch, then I would definitely stay. But sometimes there isn't for these sort of events. So, but I went to the green room, and then William was there. So of course I'm just going to hang out with him the entire time. So yeah, I did that. I hung out with him, and you know, he's freaking out and stuff. And when, as you said, game 3, when we realized that was going to happen, I remember went out onto the stage area, said hi to you, had a moment with Blitz's mom that was very memorable. And I mean, it was really nice. I'm not going to lie. I kind of wish that I could have got up on stage with like the team, because I know them so well and stuff like that. And obviously I was really friends with Blitz, but I understood it wasn't like appropriate for me to like integrate myself into that situation. But I just really appreciated the fact that that was happening for like my best friend. It's like his dream comes true. And so it was like this really special moment. So I just sat out on the floor and watched it all unfold, and stuck around until they eventually kicked us out. Watched Aiden sign with all the fans that stuck around. He stayed out there till the end, signing. So yeah, it was all around great experience. TI, I think, was pretty successful, I would say, from a production standpoint. Story was decent. Obviously, the biggest problem was just the games. It was just fucking 2-0s everywhere. It was terrible, and that was really bad because that was the culmination of, I think, a relatively bad year for competitive Dota. Games wise, it was not great, and obviously so fresh. TI 11 is like relatively fresh, right? So it's like, man, I had another one. We've had a lot of one-sided finals. We've had a lot of Game of Gladiators versus Liquid with one-sided results. We've had a lot of one-sided games in general. It's just not been great the last 2 years. But it seems like a lot of stuff has turned around. Obviously, the biggest problem is with the games. That just means it's usually meta-dependent, because there is enough competition that things should remain, relatively back and forth. So a lot of times it's just the meta that is the problem. And so for TI 11, obviously that was kind of Wraith-packed. And for this TI, it was just the fact that we had a new patch with facets and everything. And once you when you introduce that much change into Dota, it is extremely likely that the TI is going to be bad. It's just, I feel like every single time we have one of those big patches, that TI is usually bad because the patch is not fixed enough. Now, fortunately, we're here in November, and we could take a look at it and say, okay, yeah, this patch actually can be good. We just needed to tweak it a bit, and all of a sudden, we're kind of back into competitive Dota that people who have watched the game for a while kind of recognize, which is competitive games. Yeah, there's some top teams for sure, but there is actually back and forth within games. There are series that are going to 3 games. We've actually had some relatively hyped games this new season. So yeah, things are definitely looking up in that regard. So
I was trying to press the theory about big patches in TI and think about like 7.0 in talent trees, which was like what, that was pre TI 7, because that would have been late 2016.
Sure.
Sounds
about right.
Another Liquid win.
That's a Liquid win. Yep. That's 3-1 Liquid over Newbie.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Yeah, that finals.
No. That was a 3-0 finals.
Yeah, that was the first 3-0 in Dota history. So yeah, there's a good example. That finals was definitely not competitive. The reason people remember it is obviously Liquid was a pretty well liked team, and then there was, it was also West versus East, which made it better than many recent TIs. And then there was like the SEC, that meme moment of him
so
staring down at Liquid in their celebration.
There's so I'll get excited next time there is a truly game defining bending patch, because it'll be good for Liquid, whether it's talent trees or facets, or the next time we get a truly giant ass shakeup. I'll be pretty hyped for what that brings. Oh, man. I guess I would say that the games have been getting better. I have been incredibly tepidly watching Dota post TI. It feels like I've had
understandable,
like a real. I'm in like a real refractory period.
I mean, how could you possibly be invested in games after the experience of being there in person for TI where your team wins? It's like, it's probably pretty hard to be reinvested in watching Dota again after that experience. It's my job. So, I have been working a lot because I have been replacing Suns Fan. I replaced Suns Fan for Dream League, and I'm replacing Suns Fan for Blast. So I'm just going to all these kind of events, and I'm waiting for the inevitable thread about how, stop hiring the same people over and over again, which will maybe the person intending it isn't about me, but I'm one of the people working the most events. So
if someone's looking at the data and they're like, who's been to everything? You have had a busy schedule. I know that it is part of filling in for Suns, but you were at Bet Boom, right? So you were in Belgrade. Yeah. You've been. How many weeks in the last 3 months have you spent in Europe?
Yeah, I've done. So I did a month basically. It was a little less than a month, but it was over 3 weeks of Belgrade straight to Sweden. And then I have been back for about 2 weeks, and then I'm going to go to Copenhagen for a week, and then I'm going to come back for about a week, and then I'm going to go to Thailand. So busy. It's good. It's bad. It's, it's a combination of things. I recently, Anders, the CSGO caster.
Yeah.
He recently put out a vlog, and he also did a content piece. He did a CSGO video, and one of the topics that he talked about was where esports broadcasting is going. And Anders in a situation where he is being eclipsed by some of the other names in CSGO. There are 3 duos that are basically more popular than him and his duo. So he's been, not getting as much work, and he had a pretty interesting, like, little 20-minute vlog about that experience and just general, angst and plans moving forward for his role in esports. And I resonated a lot with what he had to say. There was a lot that he said. Actually, I sent him a message, and we're going to talk tomorrow. But there was a lot about the sort of ephemeral nature of being a commentator, where, you can just work. And like right now, right, I work event, right? I work 5 events. And if all of a sudden I stop getting hired, I don't get that 6th event, right? Those first 5 events didn't actually build up to anything. They didn't. It's just a transitive nature of commentary, right? Is that, and being a commentary is that what you are doing live production, and you are not actually building into anything necessarily for yourself, and, building up your brand quite as much as other pursuits do, or your long-term sort of deal, right? If you're just a commentator and that's all you focus on, and a lot of commentators don't build up a brand so much, you're just a commentator. If you just stop getting hired for whatever reason, there isn't really much behind that. And obviously I am always thinking about my future as a commentator, and that's also why I will take any gig that pretty much presents itself. I'm pretty shameless in that regard. As long as you can pay my rate, I will probably work your event.
I did that literally last week.
Yeah,
we can talk about that later.
Joey just hired me to host his My Blue Crane game to shill his organization's fan club thing.
It was a good show because you're very good at your job.
It was great. I mean, it was a fun concept. You're also very good at your job. It's a fun concept. It's a giant crane game. Can't really go wrong with that. But yeah, you know, it was just like, you don't know how long this is going to last. So you make the most of it where you can. And yeah, I just thought it was kind of interesting. And we've had these conversations before, and they don't really stop. In fact, they only become more pertinent because of the fact that the future of where esports broadcasting is going with co-streaming, right? Co-streaming is becoming bigger and bigger, right? And we're doing less and less of the Dota, not so much. Dota, it seems we still hold the main broadcast in a pretty high regard. But at least on the Russian side of things, that is definitely not the case. Co-streaming has really taken over there. The two main streamers for the Russian side of things, that's where a lot of this broadcast is just going through at this point in time. And for other games, it's had big waves for a lot of the Riot stuff.
League is, I mean, I can talk about that for an hour. It's crazy.
For those of you guys who don't know, so God, I thought this was really funny. You know, PGL did their very small version of this for their qualifiers, right? Which was, they said, hey, we're not going to do official coverage for qualifiers. We're just going to let the community handle it. So if any of you streamer guys want to be able to cover a region, hit us up. We'll give it to you, right? That's kind of what they did. Riot is much better at PR than PGL is, and I don't mean that in a good way. They recently announced that their I'm going to find the exact wording for it. Their LPL, which is their Chinese league for League of Legends. In 2025, we're excited to introduce a new approach for the LPL English broadcast by moving to a co-streaming only model. This change aims to bring LPL English-speaking fans closer to the action by building a community-centered broadcast experience. Our goal is to enhance the way fans connect with LPL, meeting the players where they are and allowing them to enjoy matches in real time through their favorite streamers.
Somebody got paid a lot of money to write that. Riot pays pretty good salaries.
It's fucking. This is why I mean it. I don't mean it as a compliment. That's such an evil use of fucking PR, man. Like framing it as we're bringing you closer to the action by completely dismantling the official broadcast and just giving it to streamers. Like.
I don't want to speak too out of pocket because I don't know
That's
the hard
crazy.
numbers. But you know, with the LCS in the last year or two at this point, the majority of the viewership is coming from the co-streamers. It's your Tyler Ones, it's your Double Lifts, it's your people who have giant stream presence. They do that, and then Riot actually, it's interesting because they do lock it down to specific people. Like you have to have an agreement to do some co-streaming. They don't just like let anybody go willy nilly. Hey, cover the stuff. It's an elite and select group of people, but like people are, by and large, watching their favorite streamer cover the LCS instead of watching the LCS, which is now the LTA. And I do not know how that is really going to impact the co-streaming situation, like moving forward, but clearly they don't need it for secondary languages. So, you know, and then, but the other side of that is like, can I really fault them for doing it? Because they're probably making like the business decision that's correct, which is why are we paying for all this stuff if people don't care? That's more of like an existential problem, right? Like,
Yeah. I mean, I would argue that I am not against co-streaming at all. I think it is basically the future of not just esports broadcasting, but broadcasting in general, right? I think the internet has allowed people to be able to get closer and closer to their favorite athletes, to their favorite influencers, celebrities, whatever, right? And having these personality focused broadcasts that are much more intimate makes total sense. I would argue that it's probably not a good business decision to not kneecap, because I think kneecapping it would be the correct business decision, but completely murder your official broadcast. I would argue that's not the right play, because co-streaming is supposed to coexist with the official broadcast. The official broadcast is there in the background in the first place, and the co-streaming works off of that, right? You need some pretty god tier entertainer to be able to solo run, fucking 12 hours of broadcast potentially, right? They're not going to be able to do that. Even a group effort of that regard is still probably going to fall a little bit flat. Mm-hmm. And I would say that I think they are completely missing the point of co-streaming, which is the co-streaming is an addition to, or maybe it is more important, but you still need some sort of foundation for the co-streaming to work off of, in my opinion. I've watched like a fair amount of co-streaming, and to be honest, like a lot of the things that the co-streamers bring into it comes in spurts, right? The twist that they put onto it comes in waves, and then in those downtime, because they can't be on 24/7 nonstop, making content, right? Then you need that background action. You need something for that person to be able to work off of, mm-hmm. right? And if you take away the official broadcast, then you're just left with the game and the person.
Like read chat, play marbles on stream. Like, what are they gonna do?
Yeah, it's like I don't know. It for me, I think completely misunderstands like what I think co-streaming is right now in the esports space. Now, maybe this will actually just jumpstart it to where what co-stream could eventually be, which I think in some ways it circles back, where co-streaming becomes big enough that it is its own production that you hire people for, right? And then you just kind of eventually make your way back into being official broadcast.
Like how, like, we have to cancel cable. We're all going to go to Netflix, but now Netflix
yes.
and Hulu are actually just cable. Like, that feels like what you were thinking the same thing that I was kind of going to say, which is what happens when co-streaming becomes so prolific that there are going to be a few casters, like somebody in your kind of position that can just be like a co-streaming caster and then provide like a different style broadcast to people who actually wanted that and don't just want to hang out with Gork. Like,
yeah,
because I am so confident, and maybe it's foolish of me, but I'm so confident that audience exists. If it all fragmented into like people who want to broadcast, people who want casters, people who want to show, people who just want to hang out with Bulldog, like there's still a big bucket of people who want the show, and the casters could provide the show in a co-streaming format with a little bit of a tweak, probably.
Yeah. Or the hangout with Gorb thing, right? He ends up, he ends up making enough from it that he puts himself in a bigger production. That's kind of like a studio, or sort of like maybe it's a couch setup.
And then you hire somebody.
And you're able to fly those friends who are showing up online to then come into the place in the first place, and they're on the couch with you, and all of a sudden you've got the BTS studio, yeah. which is great, which is what, I hope, that's what I think the future of co-streaming is kind of, in a way, is that it just kind of eventually loops back to kind of becoming BTS. Because there's also the problem where if you get that much money, it also comes with sponsorship, and with sponsorship comes certain, responsibilities and certain lines that you can't fucking cross, right? And then all of a sudden it becomes less and less of the co-streaming. So, there is definitely some sort of happy medium that you're looking to be able to obtain. But it does kind of, I do think in many ways it is the future, in which case, why should you be a commentator if that's the position that is more rewarding and maybe probably has a much longer shelf life, right? What you are building up is your brand that is, right? Like every single time I go on to Dream League. In fact, I've talked about this with Ted, right? He's a streamer. And whenever he works these Dream Leagues, it's not good for him as a streamer, because you would think oh yeah, Ted's going to be there. And then his guys would watch the broadcast, but it doesn't actually work that way. Nope. No, a lot of times he comes back from streaming and his guys are there, people who sub to him and stuff, who pay him money. And they're like, where you been? He's like, what do you mean? I was just on the Dota broadcast for the last 2 weeks. What do you mean? And they're not tuned into that. It's not what they wanted to watch. So
I wonder why. Well, first, I have a business proposition. It sounds like we should eventually invest in a house near an international airport to have a co-streaming studio.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll cut my hair like LD. I wonder why we're not seeing any of this, or maybe we are and I'm just ignorant to it in a more traditional sports space. Because if I was an executive at Fox who just paid a now retired Tom Brady $1 bajillion to be on the NFL broadcast, if I was in that room, I'd be like, hold on, why isn't Tom Brady doing his own show during the thing with his friends? And then people can just watch Tom Brady's produced interpretation of what Sunday Night Football could be.
Because they are the pre-existing monolith, which means that they are slow. They are dinosaurs, and obviously that sort of thing, what you have been successful at is what you try to keep doing until you reach overwhelming evidence that there is something better. And that usually requires, younger people to be able to come through with their own ideas and to be able to push those ideas. You also need a generation of people who's enjoying this content to get to a point where they are the primary spenders, right? They're the people that you're wanting to advertise to and are, spending all that money. And I think our generation is obviously what people are trying to target. But we're kind of mixed. But if you go younger and younger generation, right, they're more and more, I think, influencer based and not looking at traditional broadcasts and stuff like that, right? Totally. So I think that will eventually come. I think it's just natural that esports is younger, and therefore it actually it is the innovator in that regard. That, so many times we look at traditional sports as what to do, but this is a great example of esports is actually the one that is showing you what the future looks like, and it's sports who should be trying to emulate esports.
Yeah, if Pat McAfee was doing this format of some kind of co-streaming format, if they push that through, it'd probably be maybe just as popular as an existing broadcast, and then cause a whole crisis in that industry like we're talking about right now.
Yeah. I wonder. And it's really interesting as a commentator, because I think there is so much incentive to not be a commentator, in which case this craft, this profession is I think it does have a place in the future, but it is worth calling into question. Does it? With the way content is turning.
I think if that's the case, we would see less people over time attempt to break into the profession. And is that true yet, I wonder?
I think so. I mean, I'm in Dota, so it's an old ass game, right? So obviously there's just gonna be less people, just naturally. But I think that there are a lot more people who want to be streamers.
YouTubers, even podcasters. Podcasting is like an old person game, I think.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. That's also interesting because I wonder if, I say old person like almost in jest, but I wonder if Anders' age at all plays into what he's doing, and because he's getting closer to 40, which is probably one of the older commentators in the game, like at his level. Like, I mean,
yeah, I mean he's kind of in that first wave of. Not the first generation. There's some older dogs, but I would consider it one of the first generations of multiple game commentators, right? Where Anders, Artosis, Tasteless, they're all kind of in that age area. I think I probably represent like the second wave that comes in after that, right? Toby obviously would have been in that list. LD would have been in that first list, right? So. Yeah, I think that's definitely a factor for sure. But it is kind of interesting. Just in general, I feel like there's this. I feel like it's not enough to be a commentator anymore, and I'm not sure how many of my fellow talent recognize that. Like, some of them are streamers, and then they became talent, or like just have successful streams and stuff. But I think even then, there's very few of them that I feel like really try and push that further than it is. I think BSJ is a good example of somebody who actually really tries to push it outside of just Dota. Like he is a YouTuber, he's a Twitch streamer, he's talent, and he tries to do non-Dota stuff as well. He's a representative for an organization, right? He does liquid shit all the time. Right. So he's one of the few people that I think does look past that. But I do think that I feel like there is a pressure where it's not, even though I'm at the top of the fucking pyramid, I feel like there's more pressure to be more than a commentator, even though I'm at the top. Where when I was down in the bottom or the middle, it felt like I could just focus on being a commentator, which is kind of interesting.
I mean, how much of that pressure just comes from the nag of what does my life look like in 12 years?
I honestly think it's just, I think it's less about that. I think it's honestly just a development of the space, of that it's more important to be, that it's more important to be a personality that will bring certain metrics, that will, that's more diversified, that's more, you don't want to be just a pure caster. Because again, it's just like there isn't, I think tournament organizers are being smarter about like who they hire and why. Is maybe one reason. I think it's just a general industry push of like more influencer based co-streaming stuff, that there's that pressure. I think it's just a lot of things. There is also like the esports winner, like, pressure from tournament organizers to push down your rates. That was obviously a discussion from this last year. So yeah, lots of things.
Glad it's not me.
I mean, I'm okay with it. I think I find it almost a little invigorating that it's like, it pushes me that like I have to do other things. And I think that's good. I think it's good not to, I mean, maybe it's also because like I've managed to make it up to, the top. And once you make it there, it's, I think it's easy to stay on top, personally. Because I think every person that comes after you has to not just be as good as you, they have to be better than you, right? Because it's like, they are fighting up against a pre-established brand and person who has like
a record. You're like
a record
that
and
person's
history.
a safe choice. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, why would they, for the same amount of money, if you're just as good, they're probably going to go with me because I have history and legacy and fans and all those sorts of things. Right. So I think it's easy to stay on top. I think it's hard to grind your way up. So that means I think you can get a little bit lethargic and, you know, lose sight of like, you know, constantly improving. And I think I do a pretty good job of pushing myself to always be improving in my craft. But, you know, I think this is like an extra push of like, okay, not just casting, you got to focus on developing other things. And I think that's, I think it gives you like good drive, gives me a good purpose. So I kind of like that aspect, even if it's a little spooky out there.
No, I mean, this isn't the fluff Austin up hour, but I do think you're well positioned in a lot of ways, and that's mostly because, you know, you work very hard at it. Like, I mean, I get the privilege of seeing it behind the scenes on conversations that aren't public, right? Of stuff that you're doing or thinking about or that we're talking about that is not related to just casting Dota. But I
like my 50 podcasts.
Yes, like all 50 podcasts.
And thinking about trying to make another one.
More brand presence. You must proliferate and flood the market.
Yeah.
Good thing we can do one every 3 months to really help, you know, alleviate those concerns.
Yeah, very important. I specifically, this podcast is happening in part because of Conrad. Conrad. What? Yeah. Well, when did we? It was probably when we were just playing Deadlock or something. But he was like, he asked me about the podcast, and he was like, "Come on, guys, just like once a month. Like, you could do that much, surely." I was just like, "Shit, you're right, Conrad.
We can absolutely do that much." And almost always, to be really clear for anybody who is listening and cares, it's my fault. And I'll take full
that's because Joey works a lot harder than I do. I have a lot more free time than Joey does.
Differently, I would say. It's lame for me to say like, oh, it's busy, oh, it's hard, because, you know, it's better in a lot of ways and it's worse in a lot of ways. But it has been liberating to go home and not do more work recently. And as much as like hanging out and doing a podcast is, there is the lightest bit of work to it sometimes, and I've been trying to fix my brain in that regard, which is hard, because for me it is I feel like if I ever turn it off, then it'll just go away, and I'm trying to learn that I can dial it down without it going away. So being able to like come home and then like not be like, oh fuck, I gotta do a podcast. Like it's still here. Some people are still gonna listen. It's not like we're trying to have a fucking bajillion followers. It's always fun to talk to you. But I'm like reconciling with some personal, how do I improve my life and work habit long term, and I think that there's like a little bit of podcasts and like sub work-esque activities that have gotten caught up in that. So to Conrad, can definitely do once a month. And also
that's a good personality adjustment that you've made. I've definitely been sitting there going like, Joey works too fucking much for like the last like 4 years or something. I'm just like, Joey's just like always working, always fucking, and it's it was like the crane game. We did the fucking crane game. Hey, we fucking did it. And then I know you have like 2 or 3 more projects down the pipeline. I'm just like, all right, shit.
Yeah, it's like, hey, we did the crane game. Like, you want to get dinner? It's like, actually, I got to film 2 TikToks right now, which is like, fuck.
Yeah. So instead of waiting around for 3 hours waiting for LA traffic to die down, then I took the 1.5 hour Uber ride back because I was like, I don't really want to wait around for an hour. I was like, I enjoy like your coworkers and stuff at Liquid. Everyone seems very friendly and the atmosphere is very nice, but I'm not enough of a people person to
Just casually
you know,
mingle, yeah.
casually talk
I'm not
with
either.
people. I'm just like, I don't want to do this. I'd rather be alone in an Uber.
Yeah, it's been it's been a little while. I lost an employee, so I've been doing a little bit more work. But also, it's just been a little bit busy for quarter four. For anybody who cares at all, like we launched, and this is what Austin was alluding to. Like we like a new fan platform. Called My Blue, which is essentially like there used to be Liquid Plus, where you got to like watch games, interact with Liquid stuff, tune into streams, go to events, you get points and you can spend them. Same concept, but now it's just like a better user experience, and also you have like your own version of Blue, our mascot, which you can like customize with different body parts, just like you were outfitting your fucking Dota character.
All right, calm down there, Joey. You're not showing your goddamn fucking NFT bullshit to our audience right now.
It's not NFTs.
Listen, I saw Web3 somewhere in the I don't know what that means, but I usually see it linked in with crypto shit.
It's Web3. It's not NFTs, kind of. But it's like, we're doing a lot of that. We did a fun show. I just built a 77-inch laptop that we're making a bunch of content with right now, which kind of like rolls off of the big keyboard we made last year. So it's been like busy in a really fun way. Yeah. I'm excited about the stuff we're doing.
I got an industry question for you.
Okay, shoot.
So I mentioned esports winner earlier. My viewpoint is always locked into, like I talk to other people within the industry, behind the scenes, usually tournament organizers. But my whole view is mostly painted by Dota. And Dota's a weird space, I think, compared to it's a little isolated to the rest of the esports scene, and that can mean our view of it is kind of warped sometimes. So, for example, it looked really bad at the start of last year because the Valve was like, no more DBC. There's nothing to replace it. We're just going to let third parties, and they seemingly did not give that much notice because from what I've heard, there wasn't really many third parties who were like ready to go, basically.
It takes time to do that.
It was just ESL because ESL was already pre-existing in the space. And so that was kind of the only game in town in some ways, right? It was easy. ESL, PGL was kind of it, right? China still hasn't really kicked back into form like it was pre-COVID. And a lot of the other third parties were gone. Ukraine, obviously, like there's Starladder was a relatively constant force within Dota, right? So both the DPC and Ukraine created problems there. So it was just like, okay, not looking good, right? Everybody's talking about esports winner, and we felt a little bit of it. But then, I also hear, especially lately, player salaries have been shooting up. Dota, we have tournaments coming in like fucking crazy, right? We had a year where we had like 6 months, let's say, where there really wasn't much outside of ESL and PGL. And then all of a sudden, like, Blast is like, yeah, we're doing tournaments until 2026, where they have their whole calendar set out for the next 2 years. Starting with this next one, they literally like on Wikipedia, they have an event November 23rd, 2026. Like they straight up are like, boom, ESL, same thing, PGL, we've got our own circuit going on. So now it feels like, oh, we're back in force. We've got tons of tournaments. They're all fucking doing $1 million prize pools, which is bonkers. Fisher's doing like a fucking 1 million tournaments as well. Half of them are online. They just announced they're doing $1 million tournament. One Win is doing their own tournament series. Player salaries are going off the charts. Hopefully our rates will bounce back up. It seems like they might, but we'll see. The next year still needs to be kind of set in stone and needs to be negotiated. So Are we in an esports winter still or not? That's what I'm asking you, Joey. As a general industry man.
My suspicion is that we're potentially coming out of it, but it is not clearly done.
Okay.
I think if we actually go back full force too quickly into some things that were problematic for the industry without reeling back in on it, player salaries being one of them, I actually would probably suspect that that's been one of the hardest things for orgs, like, at all in the last 5 years. I think going back up to exuberant salaries too quickly is going to be bad and could rebound us back in there. It's like people feel hopeful right now. I think people see that there's potentially paths for successful business ventures.
Right. This is because Trump got elected.
I was thinking in the back of my head how to actually relate those two things, and I just couldn't go there.
We got a businessman in the office, so of course businessmen are excited.
We're coping in two very different ways.
Sorry, I fucking keep going.
But I do think that's part of it because, I mean, who knows? Like, we might really fucking not tax people anymore, so that's good for business. I think that people see hope. I think that companies are making money or have the prospect of making money, and now we just have to be careful. I'm still worried about sponsorship dollars.
Okay, because that was my next question. I was like, esports is entirely built off of sponsorship, and from what I could tell, at least from the tournament organizer side, there still isn't that too much. It's gambling money or bust at this point in time. At one point in time, we were on the fucking crypto NFT shit. Now we're on the gambling shit.
But the gambling
we're
stuff,
on the VC money at some point.
The gambling stuff makes money, right? Like, the reason why BetBoom can have a tournament is because if they just have more tier 1 games where people will bet on them, right? So unless betting culture goes down, I don't see betting proliferation in terms of leading tournaments or events or sponsorships going down. As long as people are still gambling, I think that is just very simply revenue positive of an event to put on.
Yeah, and I mean, esports is maybe a little bit more free from regulation, whereas traditional sports broadcasting, that regulation, right? Mm-hmm. Because there does seem to be a pretty big gambling push on both esports and sports, right? And that push on sports, I think, will eventually it'll eventually become a problem of some kind.
It has to be.
Either governments or the leagues themselves are going to fucking tamp down on it, right? But esports, you're not really going to have that so much, right? A country can
not
choose
if it's
to
coming out of Serbia.
Regulate. Yeah. Yeah, exactly, right? I guess the thing, for whatever reason, DOTA English betting hasn't really been much of a thing. It's the Russian betting sites that are going gangbusters. And I actually had a conversation with somebody recently. It was just the English betting sites, they're like, let's just stick with sports. This fucking esports thing is not really working out. Let's just keep doing football, man. Which I thought was pretty interesting, because then on the Russian side, it's just fucking crazy. They're just throwing money around. Fucking BetBoom and One Win and Parivision, who I assume is Russian, but I actually don't know. They're like, why the fuck are we paying these teams? Let's just make our own fucking organization, and let's be a tournament organizer too, and let's have our fucking influencers, and apparently One Win has a fucking porn site. Did you know that?
I mean, I'm not gonna say that I'm gonna look it up, but after this podcast, I'm gonna do some research.
I learned this recently. They're like, Yeah, they have their own site. Not that they sponsor porn stars, but they have their own site. Like I'm sure you heard about the like there was that one Russian
Is
DOTA
it
tournament.
really just called onewinporn.com?
I don't know. I haven't looked it up, but
Oh God,
that's funny. It's just onewinporn.com. All right.
Maybe.
So like they're making so much money that they're like literally just becoming a fucking giant multi fucking corporate shindig. What the fuck?
I mean, it's unregulated. They just get a bunch of it, right? Depending on where they're coming from. And then what they're doing is they're just making vertically integrated monopolies. If you own the broadcast, you own the tournament, you own the teams, you own the casters, you own the studio. Like, all you're doing is...
Own the casters? Somebody own me. Somebody pay me.
Well, you can at onewomanporn.com. That's just like a really classic vertically integrated monopoly, right? Like...
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm worried.
Like after you're done watching your esports broadcast of your favorite betting esports team on your favorite betting esports tournament, you go and finish off the day by watching your favorite betting porn site. It makes sense.
Yeah. I would love the prop bets on there.
Will he come before 2 minutes? First to 10.
I was doing the thing where I left it open-ended for the audience to like imagine what that could be, and then you just said it.
Yeah.
I think to put a bow on that, in regards to sponsorship dollars, I'm worried about companies who are trying to compare their revenue year over year at this point to what is now like the COVID era. So you see, like, take a random company like, HP or Dell, which obviously I work with them, or whoever the fuck, and they go, hey, we're making less money comparative to 2020 when everybody had free money, was at home, bought new computers, stuff like that. We're doing worse relative to the pandemic. Now, how are we spending money to continue those high profits to make our shareholders happy? We got to like cut down on spending in some way, right? And where's an easy way to cut down on spending? Sponsorship. And then what is like still an industry that has burned a lot of sponsors or is unproven or is shaky or whatever axiom you want to use? It's esports. So I'm worried about these big companies who are timid about making investments because they are having less fun money, because it still feels like to me a lot of sponsorship in esports from the more traditional side, not the betting side, not the crypto side, not the mob money side, is kind of like fun money for these companies. I bet one of the cool sponsorships that I think happened this year, for me, was Olipop sponsored FlyQuest at a level that I think is like somewhat decent, and that's cool.
Who the fuck is Olipop?
Oh, dude, a fucking boomer over here, Austin. You must not go to the market very much. Olipop is essentially a new hip soda brand that is making...
It's a prebiotic soda.
They're making, quote, healthy soda, which essentially is what a lot of people are using to continue to replace soda. It's like 50
non-GMO, gluten-free, paleo, and vegan. It's just hitting all the fucking Gen Z fucking,
Yeah, and I mean millennials too. Like, I mean, I am somebody, and I'm gonna get an Olipop tangent. I'm somebody who stopped drinking soda probably a decade ago because of my health, and I still like soda. And Olipop is one of many brands that is making soda that is like almost as good as Coca-Cola, but it is 50 calories, and it's like a treat, and it's not fake sugar. Right. So I think that there is a shift to, they're disrupting the soda industry, long story short. But like they're sponsoring FlyQuest, right? New industry, newish industry, and being disruptive. And I think that's like fun money for them. That's not like a huge calculated business decision. It's like, oh, we want sponsorship money. We have to start to play like these other people. What are we doing? Let's put our fun money into esports. And if companies have less fun money because of a global recession, because of Trump, because of tariffs, because of comparing profits to 2020, because of global economic shit that I'm not in any way, shape, or form qualified to talk about, then it only hurts us. So that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about.
I do think
companies.
it's smart though if they're representing basically they're trying to take on the soda industry. The best way to do it is hit the youth, right?
Yeah.
Try and make a generational swing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I see what you're talking about.
So to answer your question, esports winner, light at the end of the tunnel, but like I think if we bounce back too hard, it could be bad. And it's dependent on a lot of these companies and sponsors, and it's also dependent on general ethics shifts. Like, if we're cool with this entire industry existing on betting money and not worrying about whatever the repercussions of that are going to be in 5 to 10 to 20 years when we have a bunch of people with literal gambling addiction and problem, which may be the way that the world is going, like, cool. I guess we all have jobs and we all get to do the thing we like, but there may be like some big picture repercussions there.
True. Don't gamble, kids. Bad idea.
Definitely not on the election or any thing else that would be problematic.
What Joey's referencing here is I gambled on the election.
I made that vague enough to give you the opportunity to not cop to that, for the record.
Listen, what I found was really interesting. I've told several people about this. Because it's not like I don't do it. I don't do it pretty much any other time. I go blackjack every once in a while, but I don't like leaving my house. So, it's like it's only at events when there happens to be a casino nearby, which is pretty rare, right? So I'm pretty responsible in that regard. But I had somebody give me a talking to. Not like a big one, but like, he was like, don't do that. I was like, okay. They got kind of serious about it. They're like, no, really. Don't do it. I was like, okay. I'm not gonna do it. I was like, what do you mean? It's like I'm only gonna do it once every 4 years. And he was like, no, don't do it. I was like, okay, all right, fine.
That sounds like maybe a good friend.
Fine. Yeah. It was a good friend moment for sure.
Oh God. Fuck. I'm not gonna talk about the election.
We could talk about the adpocalypse. You heard about this? All the Twitch streamers freaking out because the politics shit got so messy that supposedly advertisers are pulling away from Twitch, and there's an adpocalypse.
I don't know. We go through an adpocalypse like once every year, right? For some different platform. Like,
No.
I think if I don't want to diminish anybody's fucking work, but if your sole income stream is like your CPM on like Twitch or YouTube or what have you, then yes, you're very susceptible to that, and should probably hedge against it in some way.
Yeah, I feel like these are not the. Am I crazy? But I feel like all of these streamers they're all talking about adpocalypse. But like none of them need the fucking ad money, from my understanding. They all have crazy fucking sub goals. I occasionally tune in. There's like fucking Kai or whatever the fuck his name is. He's doing one right now. It's like he's on like the 3rd week of doing it. It shows up on my feed. I'm just like, yeah, it's just him sleeping with a giant whiteboard that has, if you donate fucking 200 subs, a fucking car alarm goes off for some shit, And I'm like looking at the number of subs. I'm just like, that's an astronomical amount of money. Like, and most of these streamers are like this. Most of the big streamers, they have massive number of subs. So I'm just like, I'm pretty sure you guys are pretty insulated. Like, you don't have to worry about the ad money so much.
You ever go into a Twitch stream and then just like look at somebody's public sub count because it's on stream, and then like divide that number by, or multiply the number by 0.25?
Yeah.
And you go like, oh my God, you're making that per month? Shit. I do that once a week.
I try not to do that because I'm just like, that's envy is a bad way to live,
Yeah, comparison
Thief of joy
is
and all
the
that.
thief of joy. There you go. See, we're on the same wavelength. I'm happy in my little room with my shit and our fun little podcast. Don't need to be Kai sent. Don't need to be woken up by a car alarm.
True. But if you wanted to sponsor this podcast, it would be cool.
If you want to sponsor this podcast, we would shield the shit out of you, and honestly, do it a lot better than a lot of people. So just saying.
True.
We'll do a show sooner next time.
Yeah.
Done.
Sounds good. We'll do it before Christmas.
We'll do a show before Christmas. And then
Are you going anywhere for Christmas?
I'm going nowhere for Christmas. I'm going to Montana for Thanksgiving because my one of my cousins is having a baby. She's the first person in my little group of there's like 4 of us, me and my sister. We have 2 cousins. She's the first person having a baby. So it's being born this weekend, and I'm gonna go hold it, I guess, which will be interesting. And then I'm gonna drive to Yellowstone because I've always wanted to go, and I'll be close.
Okay. I think I did that trip when I was I know I did that trip as a kid. I don't know if we did it twice. Might have just been once. Well, are we talking like blue sky Montana? Like, are you going to actually be, out in
like Bozeman, like city-ish? I mean, all their cities are like very. Montana only has 2 Costco's. Fun fact. Wild, small state.
Yep.
But yeah, so I'm gonna go to Montana for Thanksgiving, and then after Christmas, I'm gonna get on a plane and go. I'm gonna take 2 weeks of vacation. Be a bit off the grid. I'm going to go to Taipei for New Year's Eve with some friends.
Okay.
And then my birthday's in early January, and I'm going to go to Japan.
Cool. So you're going to go Taipei to Japan.
Yeah.
I assume.
Yep.
You're not making. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
you going to Japan with anybody?
there's a bunch of people who are kind of coming through at the same time. So yeah, so I'll be with some people for the majority of the time, and then there's going to be some people going in and out. I've always wanted to go to the big wrestling show they do on January 4th. My birthday's on the 16th. We're going to Sapporo to go skiing, which is something I've always wanted to do. So I'm just checking off a bunch of bucket list stuff. And I think that I've been Japan pilled since I went last year. So I just I've been kind of yearning to get back. I don't have it here. I should show it to you, but I got my international driver's license today, which was fun.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I'm pretty sure my U.S. passport worked in Germany. And it works in Sweden. So,
those EU countries recognize American driver's license as European driver's license.
Right. Okay,
but there is a list of maybe 30 countries where you need a permit to go drive in, and Japan is one of them.
Huh. Cool.
Yeah. So.
Learned something new today.
Every day. But yeah, I'll see you post-Thanksgiving, pre-Christmas. Everybody, thanks for hanging out. Let us know in Discord that you missed us. That's important.
Yeah. Hang out in the Discord.
Listen to Cap's 7 other podcasts. See you soon.